Welcome back, everyone, to the Rose Experience. Today, I'm happy. Why am I happy, you ask? Well, in the short time that I've started this channel, I've had a ton of success, and that's all thanks to you people. So I want to take this time to thank you. You, and especially you out there. Now, with E3 about to ramp up in the next few weeks, there's a lot I could get into, and I will get into that. But I'm feeling a little nostalgic. Nostalgic and melancholy feelings seem to hit me whenever I'm looking forward in life. To capitalize on that feeling, that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to look back on the gaming greats, the ones that got away, so to speak. With HD remakes and reboots that are all the rage right now, I wanted to take this time before E3 and really delve into some of the series and franchises and IPs that maybe passed us by and didn't get enough due. Now keep in mind, these are my own personal selections, so don't get your panties in a bunch if I miss out on your favorite or something that's obvious to you. Because chances are I probably thought of that as well. Now we are going to start a little obscure, so stick with me and I'll guide you through it. Here we go. Zillion. Like the NES, the Sega Master System was home to all sorts of weird stuff, and in 1987, it gave us Zillion. Originally an anime who seems to have some influence in the character design of renowned movie Akira, Zillion is a platformer, puzzler, side-scrolling shooter. Say that 3 times fast. You could free roam all over the base akin to a Metroid, with new paths opening up as you progress. And it also allowed you to switch between 2 other characters once you freed them. I remember going over to my friend's house as a kid and dropping this game in, obviously having no clue what it was. We proceeded to write room codes on graph paper for the next 3 hours, all while having the butt-kicking theme of Pure Stone playing in the background, which is the one playing right now. In our numerous trips back to the planet's surface to restore JJ's life bar. Zillion received a weak sequel the next year, but was done after that. Honestly, the chances of this ever being redone for today's audiences are slim to none, but I wanted to mention it as a near and personal choice of mine. Parasite Eve. Released on the PlayStation 1 in 1998, Squaresoft, at the height of their gaming powers, gave us an awesome modern action RPG, or cinematic RPG as they were apt to call it, mixed with just the right dose of survival horror. Notable for being Square's very first game to receive an M for Mature rating, and for breaking the mold from a development perspective at the time, by bringing both Eastern and Western teams together to jointly create Parasite Eve. Setting itself apart even further, Parasite Eve featured a female character named Eabrea in their starring role, and how you can kick some parasitic mutations butt in the New York Minute along the way. The battle system was a hybrid affair of both traditional and active RPG elements that really stood out for the time, as well as hosting an extensive and very customizable arsenal for Aya to wield. All the big players were involved with Parasite Eve, and it was even produced by the father of Final Fantasy himself, Hironobu Sakaguchi. Originally designed as a sequel to the novel released previously, it was received well critically, commercially, and given a somewhat rushed sequel in 1999. Parasite Eve was briefly reintroduced in 2010 on the PSP under the name The Third Birthday. But it was never really released with the same fanfare for the namesake, or what it deserves. Now, with such an iconic main character, and being that it takes place in a modern setting, which is rare for an action RPG, Parasite Eve seemed poised for a re-release and to find the success it never really truly had. And I don't seem to be alone in this. Every time a new list is made up by top gaming sites or publications, Parasite Eve is right at the top of the highest requested games to be remade. ActRaiser. Most people who have played ActRaiser label it as one of the hidden gems that still hasn't been outdone in many ways today. Released extremely early in the SNES's life cycle, late in 1991 for North American audiences actually. ActRaiser was developed by Quintet and produced by Enix. You're placed in the role of the Master, a godlike being. You begin from atop your heavenly outpost, perusing the world and rebuilding it. You do this by shaping and saving the lives of each city's denizens through various tasks, eventually uncovering layers in each city. ActRaiser then flips the script gameplay-wise, transferring the player back and forth from a world-building so cute you want to punch cherub to a super-powered Holy Knight, destroying evil minions in a superb side-scrolling hack and slash, all while being treated to a soundtrack fit for a god. Produced by legendary Yuzo Koshiro, memorable tracks such as Blood Pool stand out along with special moments you really wouldn't expect, surprising you at every turn. For example, when your followers discover the wonderful thing we like to call music. Man, that piece gets me every time. In 1993, ActRaiser 2 was released, but some of the magic was gone from the formula, as they ditched the world building and in turn losing that incredible balance the first game was known for. Likely a victim of Japanese figureheads at the time insisting on dumbing down their games for us big dumb Westerners, ActRaiser 2 was tanked with these omissions and hasn't really been heard from since. Now there is some slight optimism to be had, and murmurings as recently as 2008 that certain people in the biz wanted to create a sequel. Until that hypothetical and joyous day arrives, ActRaiser remains one of Super Nintendo's greatest titles, and an underrated franchise poised for a triumphant return. Someone kickstart this thing already. Chrono Trigger. What else is there to say about Chrono Trigger that hasn't been said? 1995 was the year. Akira Toriyama's art and all the creative power from the golden age of Squaresoft ultimately led us to, well, in my estimation anyway, the greatest game of all time. Sure, okay, the final boss is some messed up astronaut underneath that spiky exterior, but forget all that. Chrono Trigger, babe! I mean, come on, Chrono Cross isn't really a direct sequel, and Radical Dreamers was a simple text adventure that barely sufficed. Yet here we are, all these years later, still wondering why the series remains abandoned and squandered. What makes it worse is that Square seems to have zero problems releasing it on any platform that will run it, all while charging premium prices. So why not capitalize here and give us a proper sequel? Don't we deserve this? I know I do. I've been good. I swear I have. Realistically, it doesn't seem to be from a lack of want to create said sequel or reboot, as mentioned by many people who worked on the game, but having more to do with the complex politics and backroom egos which have held it back from being truly revisited over 2 decades. Truly a sad state of affairs here that I can only hope is rectified in the very near future. You can almost guarantee that Chrono would be welcomed back with open arms by old fans and newcomers alike. Make it happen, Square. Legacy of Kain. In 1996, Silicon Knights teamed up with Crystal Dynamics and released an action-packed adventure early on in the PlayStation 1's life cycle, starring a vampire named Kain. I remember picking Legacy of Kain Blood Omen up and literally knowing nothing about it, but what stood out to me immediately was the voice of Kain, masterfully done by Simon Templeman. Unlike most of the games I've listed, Legacy of Kain has seen many entries into the franchise, even shifting characters in subsequent sequels, such as Soul Reaver. Created by a more familiar name in the modern gaming public, Amy Hennig of Uncharted and Naughty Dog fame, she introduced us to Raziel and even brought the series into the world of early 3D. The last entry was in 2003 and meant to tie the series and its 2 respective main characters together with a nice big bow. That didn't happen exactly, and the finale underperformed, leading to Eidos placing it on indefinite hold. A shame, as I felt Defiance was the best game released in the franchise, allowing us to play as both Kain and Raziel. Now I'll admit, much of what Legacy of Kain put forward was more unrealized, and it was always about what the series could be rather than what it actually was, but there were more than a few moments. Now, a reboot of the confusing lore and of the characters of Raziel and Kain seems more than sufficient, and with vampires more popular than ever, maybe not for the right reasons. Vampires do not sparkle, ladies and gentlemen, let's just admit. I think this franchise is poised to have the success it so rightly deserves on new consoles with a re-release. Don't you? I guess we'll see. But in the meantime, let's just forget about this whole Nosgoth thing that's going on right now. Just pretend it didn't happen. Beautiful Joe. Ah, Clover Studios. What a gift you were to the gaming world. Beautiful Joe is another of the short-lived developers' 2D gem. Originally released for the GameCube in 2003, Joe is a side-scrolling beat-em-up with an incredibly over-the-top, charming main character, who you could use his stylish VFX powers to slow down or speed up time, all while looking, well, beautiful. Acclaimed for both its visuals and incredible gameplay, Beautiful Joe received an excellent sequel in 2004, and has actually carved out a really strong following, as well as a respectable franchise character that has grown outside of gaming. Sadly, none of this translated into commercial success, and despite some random appearances by Joe, namely in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, little has been heard from Beautiful Joe since. Some consider the recent Wii U exclusive The Wonderful 101 as a spiritual successor, since it was created by the same lead. But as great as 101 is, I yearn for some more Beautiful Joe in my life.
Head to the go-go, baby!
Phantasy Star. Lastly, we come to Phantasy Star. Real quick, being a Sega Master System guy growing up, I know we were a weird bunch. Phantasy Star was the game that did it all for me. Playing the original sucked me into the whole video game thing, and it still hasn't let me go. Originally released in 1987, Phantasy Star seemed to be Sega's answer to the NES's Dragon Warrior. One of the very first games to star a female lead in Alice Landale, it also was one of the first games to introduce interplanetary travel, giving the player the feeling you were exploring something much bigger than what was actually there. Another first was the inclusion of onboard battery pack RAM, allowing save states right on the cartridge. The future was happening! Then, in 1989, Phantasy Star 2 was released on the Sega Genesis, receiving a huge boost to its visuals and regarded as a game of firsts in terms of RPG nuances. Phantasy Star 2 made an extremely bold attempt at social commentary with its narrative, years before other games even attempted it, laying the groundwork for what later games like Final Fantasy would build on and popularize with their stories. The Genesis sound chip is famous, or infamous, if you choose, for its unique soundtracks it created, and Phantasy Star 2's was definitely a standout. Walking into the weapon shop while that music played and talking to a David Bowie lookalike is still a vivid memory. The franchise culminated in 1995 for North American audiences in Phantasy Star 4. Easily the best in the franchise, it finalized the story tremendously well, which was no easy task. Unlike other RPG franchises, every release in the Phantasy Star series took place along the same timeline, give or take a few thousand years, and in the same universe. Continuing to pop up on top 100 greatest games lists of all time to this day, Phantasy Star 4 is still viewed as one of the genre's greats and represents the pinnacle of Sega's development. And that, my friends, is where this grand franchise ends. What about Phantasy Star Online, you say? Oh, you mean the abomination that is directly responsible for no more mainline entries in this series? To that, my friends, I say no. Because as long as Phantasy Star Online exists, we will never get Phantasy Star 5. Now, I think this franchise is poised for a reboot and grand success, especially with this renaissance of RPGs that we're seeing. But for that to happen, Sega would probably have to relinquish its hold on the franchise, which I don't really see happening. Of course, they could take another stab at it, and I'd love to see it. But the way this company has gone over the past few decades, I'm not entirely optimistic about the outcome. Until that, Phantasy Star's fate is left up to the ether. Man, that was a lot harder than I thought. And there are some things I had to leave out. We only have so much time. Metroid. But to be honest, there's only so much time. There's only so much my throat can take. And editing this is going to be a bit of a nightmare. So what do you think? Did I hit on any of your favorites? What did I miss? Leave your comments in the space below and beyond, because what we've seen over the past few years is that gaming experiences and wishes do come true. Hopefully for me, it happens before I get a little bit more of this Arctic blonde hair. Be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching The Rose Experience.